If you've been to summer camp, you know that there is something magical in the air. Perhaps it's the constant minor heat exhaustion or the vague smell of sweat wherever you go. But I find that I am the most connected to myself, and through that, God, when I'm at camp. I've gone to Camp Gilmont for over a decade now, and it never fails to fill my spiritual cup. However, this past year brought a new level of understanding. This year, those of us who go to camp together every year, Joy, Sarah, my brother Ruben, and I, were interns. This meant we were sort of junior counselors and got to stay for 2 weeks rather than just one. I knew we would have fun and be good interns, but I wasn't expecting the complete fulfillment I got from it. Helping kids and putting out fires left and right was what I was meant to do, at least in the moment. I found that nurturing the faiths of my campers and giving them the experience that was so meaningful to me when I was younger filled me with complete joy. To be honest, I noticed that when I was spiritually fulfilled, I was a kinder person. I was more true to myself, and I generally enjoyed who I was a lot more. It felt like the turmoil of teenagehood and constantly searching for who I was had stopped, and I could see myself clearly. I was at the top of the mountain where the noise of real life couldn't reach me, so I could focus on who I wanted and what I wanted to be. This feeling was so wonderful that I didn't want to let it go. I clinged on to it, scared to go back to the life where I had to worry about trivial things like my messy room and homework. When I went home, I felt unexpected sadness. Where was that person that I knew so well? How do I find her when I'm not constantly being fulfilled? This is when I turn to God. For me, when I'm at the top of the mountain, I don't feel a strong need to turn to God because I can always feel them with me. But there's no disconnection or distraction. But the post-camp slump reminded me that it's my relationship with God that keeps me fulfilled, even if I can't do exactly what I want all the time. Life is not summer camp, and coming down the mountain can be deeply depressing. But I know now what it feels like to be spiritually tethered. I find that the mountaintop experiences teach us about who we really are, so that when the bustle of real life distracts us, we can remember the truth and goodness of our relationships with God.
A reading from Psalm 99. The Lord rules, the nations shake. God sits enthroned on the winged heavenly creatures. The earth quakes. The Lord is great in Zion. God is exalted over all the nations. Let them thank your great and awesome name. God is holy. Strong King who loves justice, you are the one who established what is fair. You worked justice and righteousness in Jacob. Magnify the Lord our God. Bow low at God's footstool. God is holy. Moses and Aaron were among God's priests. Samuel, too, among those who called on God's name. They cried out to the Lord, and God himself answered them. God spoke to them from a pillar of cloud. They kept the laws and the rules God gave to them. Lord our God, you answered them. To them you are a God who forgives, but also a God who avenged their wrong deeds. Magnify the Lord our God. Because lo, at God's holy mountain, because the Lord our God is holy.
A reading from Exodus chapter 34, verses 29 through 35. Moses came down from Mount Sinai. As he came down from the mountain with the 2 covenant tablets in his hand, Moses didn't realize that the skin of his face shone brightly, because he had been talking with God. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw the skin of Moses' face shining brightly, they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called them closer. So Aaron and all the leaders of the community came back to him, and Moses spoke with them. After that, all the Israelites came near as well. And Moses commanded them everything that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. When Moses finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. Whenever Moses went into the Lord's presence to speak with him, Moses would take the veil off until he came out again. When Moses came out and told the Israelites what he had been commanded, the Israelites would see that the skin of Moses' face was shining brightly. So Moses would put the veil on his face again until the next time he went in to speak with the Lord. The word of the Lord.
One of the points in the Scout Law is to be reverent. Reverence is honor or respect felt or shown, especially profound, adoring, awed respect. I think that being reverent to God is important in scouting and in life. At Camp Constantine's summer camp, the tradition is for all the first-time scouts to hike Johnson's Peak and spend the night sleeping under the stars. This was my third year in scouting, but my first year at summer camp. I didn't think I was going on the hike since I was not a new scout. At camp, my scoutmaster came by my campsite and said, "Owen, are you going to hike Johnson's Peak? You don't have to, but you should." I decided to go on the hike, but because I didn't know about it beforehand, I wasn't prepared. Everybody else knew that they were going on the hike weeks in advance, and so they had packed accordingly. 15 minutes later, I found myself on a trail with a blanket, tarp, and water bottle stuffed into a trash bag. I was thinking that this was going to be a long and tough hike, but at the beginning, it wasn't that bad. Over time, the trail got more dense with vegetation. I started to feel a little uncertain. Unfortunately, about a quarter of the way through, it started to rain, and I became very worried. I was underprepared, it was raining, and I was getting wet. I was starting to regret doing the hike. I tried to remember God was watching over me. After a while, the rain slowed down and then finally stopped. As we emerged from the trees, the land around us opened up to a huge field of grass, flowers, and mud. We continued walking and slowly became more confused. The water had made the trail tough to follow. The more we walked, the more we realized that we had lost the trail. I wasn't panicking, but I was kind of on edge after being rained on and now not knowing where we were going. During this journey, I knew God was with me and would watch over me, and so we continued on. We could see the mountain in the distance, so we continued towards it. After more walking, we could reach the mountain and headed up. We got to the top and were surprised by the view. The view was beautiful, and we decided to sit and eat our dinner. Our meal was simple: tuna, crackers, and Tootsie Rolls. I really enjoyed it after the ordeal of getting there. In Exodus 34, Moses came down from Mount Sinai, and his face was shining from seeing God. The top of Johnson's Peak was really cool. I think we all felt God with us on top of the mountain. I was a little disappointed to go back down, but you cannot stay on top of the mountaintop forever. At the bottom, once the sun went down, we watched the stars and looked at the beauty that God had made. I loved sleeping under the stars. It was amazing, and I really felt the Lord's presence. Psalm 99, verse 9 says, "Exalt the Lord our God and worship at his holy mountain, for the Lord our God is holy." It is easy to feel God when you're on top of a mountain. It is easy to feel awe and reverence when you look up and see the stars. But we should also look for the Lord in the everyday moments. Jesus is called Emmanuel, which means God with us. As I looked back on the hike, I realized how God was with me before the mountain. When I felt unprepared for the trip, God was with me. In the rain, when I was cold and wondering what I was even doing, God was with me. When we were lost and looking for the path, God was with us. This experience showed me that I should look for God's beauty and go with the flow because God has a path for me, even if I can't see it yet.
About 8 days, Luke 9:28 through 36. About 8 days after Jesus said these things, he took Peter, John, and James and went up on a mountain to pray. As he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes flashed white like lightning. 2 men, Moses and Elijah, were talking with him. They were clothed with heavenly splendor and spoke about Jesus' departure, which he would achieve in Jerusalem. Peter and those with him were almost overcome by sleep, but they managed to stay awake and saw his glory, as well as the 2 men with him. As the 2 men were about to leave Jesus, Peter said to him, "Master, it's good that we're here. We should construct 3 shrines, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But he didn't know what he was saying. Peter was still speaking when a cloud overshadowed them. As they entered the cloud, they were overcome with awe. Then a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him." Even as the voice spoke, Jesus was found alone. They were speechless, and at the time told no one what they had seen. The next day, when Jesus, Peter, John, and James had come down from the mountain, a large crowd met Jesus. A man from the crowd shouted, "Teacher, I beg you to take a look at my son, my only son. Look, a spirit seizes him, and without any warning, he screams. It shakes him and causes him to foam at the mouth. It tortures him and rarely leaves him alone. I begged your disciples to throw it out, but they couldn't." Jesus answered, "You faithless and crooked generation, how long will I be with you and put up with you? Bring your son here." While he was coming, the demon threw him down and shook him violently. Jesus spoke harshly to the unclean spirit, healed the child, and gave him back to his father. Everyone was overwhelmed by God's greatness.
I have always felt God most when I'm outside. I will never stop being amazed at the colors of sunsets or the grandeur of mountains. Out there, it feels more authentic, like my first world problems aren't there to cloud my head. This past summer, I went on a month-long backpacking trip, and it was probably the hardest thing I have ever done, at least physically. But it was also the most incredible transformational experience. We frequently talk of mountaintop experiences as these big aha moments of clarity, but my trip taught me otherwise. I learned the importance of the whole journey. Climbing the mountain is where all the fun is. It's where you learn your strengths and are confronted with your weaknesses. But when I felt like my lungs were about to explode, or it was 10:30 and my group was relying on me for dinner after a long day, I only found support. And while God wasn't sending down shiny images of prophets, I felt God in my community. They had my back and never let me feel like a burden. I left as a different person, empowered by my accomplishments. But I will admit, when I got home, I felt unfulfilled. I felt like I had gone through so much transformation, I had outgrown my life. But as the days passed, I began to get back into my old rhythm and see how the growth has enhanced my life. Climbing down the mountain is hard,
but it is part of the journey. I believe my unfulfillment was a result of me not understanding how to live out what I had learned on the mountain. And while I don't know if I could give you a list of the specific things I did to share my light, I do know the importance of it. I want to support in the way I felt supported and show compassion in the way I felt compassion. Because what good is my experience when I don't share the light and love I have received from it?